Welcome to the 5:30, everyone. I'm Claudine Ewing. No one in this area can forget what happened on May 14th, 2022. A teenager, a self-proclaimed white supremacist, entered the grounds of a supermarket and started shooting. We quickly learned that day and through the courts that his target was black people. The nation took notice, especially those who have been fighting for civil rights for so many years. And joining me live via Zoom from New York City is Reverend Sharpton, a national civil rights leader and founder of the National Action Network. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Tomorrow marks 2 years since the mass shooting in Buffalo. 10 people killed, 3 injured, but an untold number of people traumatized. You were here soon after and said that Buffalo showed resiliency. What should this city, black people, white people, urban, suburban, what should they continue to focus on?
Well, I think that they should focus clearly on in the name of those that were deceased. I did a couple of the funerals, as you know, Miss Whitfield and others, and those families have continued to work toward having a fair and just environment, but also to revitalize the community. One of the reasons that white supremacists knew to go to Tops is that was the only supermarket in the black community. So he knew that's where blacks would come. We need to continue, as we said 2 years ago, building more accessibility to businesses in our communities, accessibility in terms of creativity, in terms of jobs, economic development. And we need to continue to work with those leaders there in Buffalo toward that end. And I'm committed to doing that. I think that we cannot just memorialize them every year. We must be able to every year say in their name, here's our report card on what we've done and what we committed we would do when this very tragic incident happened.
And one of those leaders is the mother of one of the victims who happens to be in studio with me now. But these mass shootings continue to happen. Why do you think 514 especially hit a nerve with this nation?
I think it hit a nerve because this was raw and unequivocal. This man didn't leave anything for debate. As I've worked a lot of these cases down through the years, you have to convince people, the public, that this was white supremacy. He said, I'm a white supremacist. He made it very clear. And this was not in the Deep South. This was in Western New York. So I think that it was so clear and so plain and so vicious because these people were shopping on a weekend afternoon. I think that it hit a nerve where people said, we really have not gone as far forward as we have said we was as a nation. I think it was a wake-up call.
You know, as we mentioned, 2 years tomorrow, well, Tops is still the only major grocery store in that area. There's still poverty, there's still blight that is taking place there. What needs to truly happen to make a difference in inner city neighborhoods like this?
Investment. How do we get stores and businesses in other areas? We invest. We get banks to invest. We get government to give seed money. We need investments. If the investments were there, and I think the victims' families could help lead that and be some kind of panel with that, then I think the people will obviously support it and purchase from it. But how do we build great developments? We invest in them. These developers don't put up their money. They get pension fund investments, public fund investments. I think we need to invest in that side of Baltimore and show from the ashes of this massacre that it would revitalize those communities and do it the same way we do other communities. Invest in it as we build developments and hotels and other things. Invest in that side of Buffalo and show a resurrection from this massacre.
Yes, and as we wrap up, I just want you to comment on Buffalo because we've seen when these incidents happen, you know, there are protests, there are riots, people are just losing it. But Buffalo did not do that. And that also has to be something that has to be applauded here, how the city of Buffalo and Western New York held its head up and really supported the victims and their families.
I think that is very accurate, and I think that a lot of credit should be given to the families of the victims. They set a tone that they did not want their loved one to be remembered for violence, but remembered for constructive building and constructive engagement. And if any of them families had stepped out and showed any rancor and called on any violence, it would have been a different story. So I think when the people that bore then and bear now the pain could rise above their pain for the good of all, it challenged all in the city and it became an example. But let's also make that example that they did it to help change and resurrect that city that on the side of town is economically deprived.
Al Sharpton, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today on the 5:30 here on Channel 2. We appreciate your time.